Well, a very good morning. We are at the Gqeberha High Court where the case of rape-accused pastor Timothy Omotoso and his two co-accused is going to continue in court this morning. What we are going to hear this morning are the heads of arguments from the state and also the defense. And what's going to be interesting is that the defense is going to try and prove that this specific case should be just called a mistrial and that all charges against Timothy Omotoso should be dropped because of what Peter Doman says are inconsistencies of the testimonies of the witnesses. You remember back about 2 or 3 years ago, Advocate Gqeberha was accused and also recused himself from the case after it was alleged that he contruded with the witnesses to change their statements to the detriment of rape-accused Pastor Timothy Omotoso. And Advocate Peter Doberman has been pushing this narrative and been trying to prove to the court that all witnesses, when they met with Gqeberha, their testimony changed, where they would say one thing to perhaps a psychologist and then meet Gqeberha, and Gqeberha would perhaps allegedly advise them to change the testimony and make it something else to the detriment of Pastor Omotoso. Then we're going to hear also from the state how this is not so, how in fact Advocate Gqeberha did not influence the witnesses to change their testimonies in court, and if anything what they have been saying and what they all maintain is that at any time in their lives, whether they were young or they were 18, they were actually sexually isolated or assaulted by Timothy Omotoso. So we're going to hear that this morning. We'll remember also the last testimony we had by Melucia Jiyani. Pastor Doberman also tried to prove that in fact that her statement that she made to court was inconsistent with what she had said to the Hawks and also Advocate Gqeberha, because originally she said that Timothy Omotoso just inserted a finger into a private part, but Peter Doberman says that he believes that after she met Advocate Gqeberha, he advised her not to say that, but in fact to call it rape to the detriment of Omotoso, because Peter Doberman said that if she just called it an inserting of a finger, it wouldn't be a strong testimony and wouldn't be converted to rape to make Timothy Omotoso have this case against him or this charge against him in court. So Peter Doberman is going to drive that this morning, where he's going to try and prove that in fact somewhere along the line Advocate Gqeberha and many other prosecutors in this case have tried to influence the witnesses to change their testimonies, to change their charges to the detriment of his client Omotoso. And then the state is going to try and prove that it is not the case, that everything they did say is in fact the truth. Perhaps they may have forgotten, because if you remember, Dr. Miller did state that when someone has been sexually violated so many years ago, sometimes what they say may not be exactly how things happen, but not to say that's not the truth. So we're going to hear how the state is going to counterfeit that and try and prove that in fact the testimonies of the witnesses are indeed their truth, not influenced by any prosecutor, not influenced by anyone, but what they believe happened to them many years ago in that notorious Durban house or in various areas in the country as they has testified. So we're going to hear this morning exactly what the state and the defense are going to bring forward, and then we'll obviously wait on Judge Umaskuman to then give her judgment at a later stage. For now, let's go back to you in studio.